Greetings, pet lovers. Brigid here with First Street Pets, and today we're going to talk about recession-proofing your pet business. Now, the economy is subject to fluctuation at any time in history throughout the years. I myself went through the dot-com boom and bust of the late 90s and early 2000s while I was running my pet sitting business in Silicon Valley at the time. That is one example of how things can drastically change. In 2022, we saw inflation, especially at the gas pump, and predictions are that in 2023, we will see recession. So what does that mean for pet businesses? Well, in general, it means that people will be more conservative. They may not travel as much. They may not pay for services that are luxuries like dog walking, and they may lose their job or make less money. So because our income depends on the incomes of other people, of the pet owners, we need to consider that in our planning for 2023 and beyond. So today I'm going to share with you my 3 keys for not just getting through a recession, but for planning for recessions or other difficult financial times, and just for running your business successfully in the long term. Key number 1, diversity. So what does diversity mean in pet sitting? For me and my business, it means that I serve a variety of different kinds of clients. I have working class people who travel a couple times a year to visit family. I have business people who travel for business. I have very wealthy people who have lots of disposable income and can afford dog walking and services even when they're at home. So there's a real variety of clients that I serve. And the thing about recession and inflation is that they affect these different groups of people in different ways. During the dot-com boom, I worked for many people who were working for all those software startup companies that you'll remember if you were around in that time or if you've read the history books. They were making a whole lot of money. They bought brand new cars, big houses, and had dog walkers, nannies, housekeepers, and personal assistants to do everything for them. It was great for all of us. Those of us running those kinds of businesses were able to enjoy the fruits of the success of those folks for a while. But then when things changed, all of those people lost their jobs, many lost their homes and their cars, and so obviously there was no more budget for pet sitting and dog walking. So how did I survive that? I went from almost 30 dog walks to like 4 or 5 within a very short period of time. Well, it was because of my diversity. I worked for other people who weren't as much affected by that. They had working class jobs like the post office or working in a hospital or something like that. And I had maybe older folks who weren't able to walk the dog themselves, so I helped them out once or twice a week. I had people who needed me to give their pets medications. So I had a good variety, so I wasn't making as much money as I was before, but I still at least had a stable client base. So rather than focusing on one type of client where maybe you make a lot of money, you want to really widen your client base to all kinds of different people and different services so that when things change, you still have a client base. Key number 2 is pivoting. You probably heard this word during COVID when suddenly nobody needed pet sitting anymore. I went from serving about 75 clients at the time to 1. I literally had 1 client for a year because they are essential service workers and had to continue going to work no matter what the situation. Pivoting in terms of planning for or living with a recession means not focusing too much on one type of service. Now, in your business, you probably have one type of service or product, if you have a product-based business, that is your bread and butter. For example, if you are in a big city, a metro area, you may do a ton of dog walks. I know in some cities in California, folks do those huge walks with like 10, 15 dogs at a time. They go on hikes, they go from one apartment or condo to the other and pick up all the dogs. It's big business, and that's great. The problem is dog walking isn't really necessary, especially if people are at home. So if things change and folks don't have disposable income anymore, dog walking is probably going to be one of the first things to go. So while that's a great service to offer and provide, you want to have other services that you offer that different kinds of clients will need. On the other hand, some pet sitters don't do dog walks, either because they don't like to do them or because they're in a more rural area or someplace where there just isn't a demand for regular dog walks. What we saw during the COVID lockdown was that folks reliant on vacation care suddenly had no business at all because nobody could travel. And even now, folks are starting to travel again, but people are still concerned. Last year, people were still wearing masks. There were still concerns about that. So it's definitely hasn't gone back to pre-COVID levels. So if you were only focusing on people who travel for vacations, just be aware that anything that affects that, like a quarantine or like rising prices in gas or airline tickets, can definitely put a damper on that service that you offer and the money that you make from that. When you're thinking about success in any business, you don't just want to think about what you like to do or what you're good at. You want to think about what your clients need. What is the problem that they need to solve? Are they in an apartment and they work all day and so their dog needs a walk? Are they unable to give medications and you can help them with that? What is it that you are helping serve the clients with in regard to their pets? I have seen some folks come up with great ideas for pivoting. For example, one vet tech that I know during COVID got a lot of requests for nail trims because the vet hospitals were closed. And even when they opened up again, it was hard to get an appointment. You had to meet out in the parking lot and so forth. So this individual started doing nail trims in people's homes. And that actually turned into a good business for her. So that's one of the things that you can do is nail trimming or any other number of things that you can do that folks need at home with their pets. The sky's the limit. So use your imagination, maybe make a list of things that you think people might need or want, or go ahead and ask your clients or pet owning friends, what is a thing that you might need? Luxury items might include things like pet portraiture. If you're an artist, if you're a photographer, things like that might be someone would want to buy. Other services that are more necessities like delivering pet supplies. Some people do order through Amazon and Chewy, but others don't. Maybe they just don't like to use those services or they like to patronize the local shop. Offer to pick up and deliver their food and supplies. Maybe pick up meds from the pet hospital for clients who don't drive or who are too busy or who are at work during business hours. These are just some ideas of things that you can do, and I'm sure you can come up with a few more of your own. Key number 3 is money management. Now, this is something that is good for you to do in any case, wherever you are in the world and whatever you are doing. But it is especially important in recession-proofing your pet business. Now, my boyfriend has a funny saying about his business. He's also a successful entrepreneur. And he says, sometimes you get the chicken and sometimes you get the feathers. So some years are very full, you make a lot of money, you have a lot of clients. Other years, not so much, depending on whatever the factors are that affect your business. When you work at a regular job, you get a salary. Every 2 weeks, you get a paycheck that's probably about the same, so you can always count on that. But not so in self-employment. Some weeks or months, you may make a lot of money. For pet sitters, it's usually summer and Christmas time and maybe some of those holiday weekends where you make the most money. Well, don't be too quick to spend it. That may seem obvious, but it can be easy to get used to having a lot of money and spending it. And then when the lean times come, there's nothing left over to sustain you through those weeks and months. Or in the case of a recession, perhaps a year or more. There's nothing wrong with enjoying the fruits of your labor, but be prudent. For example, last year I treated myself to one thing. I bought a custom new saddle. So that was my one goodie for the year, and the rest of the money I spent or saved prudently. The thing about boom times is that they are situational and they're usually temporary. And I'll give you an interesting example from another industry. Here in California, we had several years of devastating wildfires that caused a lot of damage, killed people, burned down homes, devastated our wildland areas. And in the aftermath of that, many people needed tree services. So folks running tree cutting businesses, arborists and tree trimmers, were extremely busy for several years. They literally had as much work as they could take, and they could charge as much as they wanted because people had dangerous trees that were falling down on their property and so forth. So these folks made a lot of money. Well, the problem is if you get used to spending that much money because you're making it for several years, now that there haven't been any fires, thank goodness, and this kind of service is drawing to a close and you're just getting back to your regular tree clients that you would see on a normal basis, the money is just not there anymore. So it's a good idea to plan. Like I said, enjoy it, but not all of it. Spending on things like I bought like a saddle is one thing, but you want to be even more careful about making long-term commitments, such as buying a new car or a house, because even for several years, you may have enough money to make those high payments, but in the years that you don't, you still have to make those payments. So just think long and hard before making longer term commitments. Either wait on doing it or choose something that you know you can afford even in a more difficult time. I hope these tips have been helpful for you. I would really love to hear from you, whether pet sitters, dog walkers, pet shop owners, any other kind of business owners and managers. Have you been through boom and bust times before? What were some of the things that you did to keep your business afloat and to continue to be successful? I wish you the best for your business for 2023, and thank you for watching.